Pour yourself a glass of wine, get your favorite deck chair, and let's talk our summer Disney reading lists.
Just an 80s boy and a 90s teen, going on all things Disney, from house to parks and in between. Come share the magic with me. La 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 la. Live your life to a Disney tune. Come and share Jake's Disney afternoon.
Happy summer, Disney afternoon gang. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jake. If you're returning here, you know I appreciate you coming back. And if you're new, I do all kinds of content, including subscription boxes, hauls, trips, vintage, book lists. If it's Disney, we're doing it. So you're going to want to click that subscribe notification down below so you don't miss out on any Disney afternoons. All right, tomorrow is the first day of summer, and I am done for school for the year. Drink to that. I know some of my public school teacher friends are still going for another week or week and a half on that. But let's talk about summer reading list, because it's the one time we always swear we're going to read a book. I'll take these off. But look at these. Look how cool these are. They're my little Mickey glasses. I got these at the park a few years ago. All right, so I have got a list of books I'm going to recommend to you if you're looking for a little bit of Disney magic in your reading life. So let's get into this list that I have. So I've broken this up into 3 categories. The first we're going to talk about is biography. And the first book on my biography list is Walt Disney, The Triumph of the American Imagination by Neal Gabler. I will have books for the rest of these, but this one I actually own a digital copy, so I'll plunk a picture up here. But this is one of the most definitive biographies on Walt Disney. Coming in at over 900 pages, it is incredibly well researched. It tackles the beautiful, the ugly, and everything in between. You'll get a different view of Walt by the time you're done with this. He was human, he had faults, he had struggles, and this book details them all. It's a bit of a slog at 900 pages, but well worth the pat on the back if you can finish it. All right, the next one I am super pleased to present. This is Defying Gravity, about the career of Stephen Schwartz. Stephen Schwartz, if you didn't know, is the writer of lyrics for Pocahontas, for Hunchback, for Enchanted. He started to work on Mulan, as we have discussed before, and he is sort of another well-known figure in the Disney writing community. This book here will cover all of his career, including Wicked, you know, obviously one of his most popular musicals, but it goes all the way back to Godspell and The Baker's Wife, and through new things like the stage adaptation of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I know this author, Carol Deja, is one of my very dear friends, and I don't know if I can find it fast enough to not bore you. My name is in this book. I mean, I'm just going to say. I had the distinct pleasure of helping, in a small way, Carol do some proofreading work on this. I spent summers upstate with her, and let's see, I think I'm somewhere in this list. I know you're probably annoyed that I'm going to show it off, but I'm going to do it anyway. Let's see. Here I is. I'm over here in somewhere right there. You can see, there's my name. This is a excellent read. Carol is a fabulous writer, and it covers everything. It goes by quickly. You're going to want to pick this book up too. The last biography on my list is Marc Davis, Walt Disney's Renaissance Man. So Marc Davis was one of the feature animators, and he worked on a lot of important characters. I've got my lists here. He worked on Snow White, Cinderella, Alice, Tinkerbell, Mrs. Darling, Aurora, Maleficent, and Cruella, just to name a few. Marc Davis was really great at caricature and animal drawings, but people always joke that he got stuck with the boring human figures, which are much more difficult to animate and typically a lot less fun because they lack the cartoonish quality that some of the sidekicks and even a few of the villains tend to have. But this is written by several key people. Don Hahn and Andreas Deja and Glenn Keane all contribute a section. Marty Sklar is in here. So he went on to become one of the key Imagineers after a stint in feature animation, as we just listed his credits. Disney kind of moved him over into developing characters and storylines for some of the most famous rides, Jungle Cruise and Tiki Room, Small World, Haunted Mansion. So Marc Davis is really the Renaissance man. And I love this quote from Walt Disney. I'm going to read to you. And this is where the title comes from. Walt Disney said, Marc can do story, he can do character, he can do animals, he designs shows for me. All I have to do is tell him what I want, and it's there. He's my Renaissance man. So this is a really great read. It looks like a big book, but it's actually not a very long book, filled with art, concepts. Here's beautiful animation. It's just so great. But here's some Cinderella concept. I just love looking at this art. So if that interests you, this is an excellent, excellent read. All right, so the second category I thought I'd talk about is creativity. For those of us who work in a creative field, I do theater and writing. Some of you may work in other kinds of creative output. And even if you don't, a lot of you have hobbies and, make ears and other kinds of crafty things. And we're always drawing the well of our inspiration. So this creativity category, I thought I'd start with Don Hahn's book, Brainstorms. Now, Don Hahn was the producer of things like Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King, and he worked for Disney for a while before splitting. And he wrote this really interesting book about unleashing your creative self, as it says on the cover. I think he went through a period of personal realization after he had gained a lot of success doing these Disney films, and then kind of was like, I have everything, but I don't feel creative in my soul. And I think he took a step back and reevaluated his life. So I just thought I'd read just this really quick thing. We are goal-oriented. We learn to celebrate the completion of a job with pomp and circumstance. The arrival of a product like the iPad is touted with headlines and hyperbole. In all this celebration and marketing, we lose track of the earlier part of the equation, the ideas, materials, and quality that go into his work. And I think that's the place that Don Hahn found himself in, was product after product after product after product, and he missed that inspiration, that sort of early development. Fascinating read, good for the soul, replenishes the creativity that sometimes gets sucked dry as a teacher. I know it's hard for me to pour myself into teaching and then feel like I have something left over for my own creative expression. The other book that I have found fascinating is the Imagineering Workbook. And this is written by a bunch of different Imagineers. And essentially, it's kind of like a workbook of essays and some practical application things that you can apply from the Imagineers, with sort of contents, storytelling, storyboarding, dream and do, your creative license, warming up, techniques, going the distance, strength building. And each of them are, they're short little entries, and they have interesting points of view. And it tells who these people are and why. Here's Marty Sklar, who is big with Imagineering. You've probably heard his name quite a bit. He was one of the top executives. But again, a little more practical than Don Hahn's book, because it kind of encourages you to try some things and experiment with some things, where Don's book is a little bit more just self-reflective. Both excellent books. Highly recommend both if you are looking for ways this summer to replenish that creativity. And then the last three I'm going to talk about are under animation studies. And I realize that this is going to get a little heady for some of you. You kind of got to have a passion for this stuff. But the first one is Andreas Deja's some of these are getting bigger as we're going down the pile. The 9 Old Men. So the 9 Old Men, you probably know or have heard, were the top animators in Disney's time who were responsible really for basically the golden era of animation. And they are Les Clark, Marc Davis, Ollie Johnston, Mick Call, Ward Kimball, Eric Larson, John Lonsberry, Wolfgang Reitherman, and Frank Thomas. All of them have a unique skill set. All of them had something they were good. Some were excellent draftsmen. Some were really good actors. Some were great storytellers. Wolfgang Reitherman went on to become one of the great directors, sort of as at the end of Walt's time, and then certainly taking after. He was kind of the next Walt-like. But the others had their strengths too, and together they made this amazing art form. So Andreas Deja was one of the Renaissance animators. He came up in the 80s. He was responsible for Gaston and Hercules and Scar. And he's an incredible historian. He has a passion for this stuff. So he wrote a book on the 9 Old Men that I highly, highly recommend. I picked this up incidentally when I was in San Francisco at the Walt Disney Family Museum, which if you ever have a chance is a really fascinating museum curated by his family. Lots of really wonderful artifacts. And in fact, they have like touring exhibits that come in. When I was there, it was the Ivan Earl exhibition, and he was a painter whose stylings basically really lended their characteristics to Sleeping Beauty. And if you look at his paintings outside of Disney and Sleeping Beauty, it's like the same world. It's stunning. I digress. The next book is called Drawn to Life, and this is super heady. Look at the title. It looks like a textbook. These were written by Walt Stanchfield, who was really responsible for training and educating a lot of the new generation of animators. He started compiling interviews in the 70s with the 9 Old Men who were really at the end of their career, some of them in declining health. And he started to write down what he learned from them. And this is an art textbook. It talks about shape and color, line, design, poses. There's all these little small categories that focus on just the minutest of things. Perspective, caricature, all kinds of things. Realism, animals, anatomy. This just talking about some joints and smaller movements that lead to this kind of motion. That's Penny from The Rescuers. And so anyway, this is volume 1. There are 2 volumes of this book. They do take a little bit of willpower, I guess you could say, to get through them. But if you have an interest in art, if you are a hobbyist in art, or even if you are an artist professionally and you haven't read these, I would highly, highly recommend reading these. And then the last in the animation series is this book, The Art of Animation from Mickey Mouse to Beauty and the Beast by Bob Thomas. And there's a newer edition that's Mickey Mouse to Hercules. And I don't know if there's one newer than that. But this I bought in 1990. What year did this come out? I'm going to say 1. Okay, I was close. This came out in 91. It was $40 at the time, which was, to my 11-year-old self, an incredible sum of money. But I saved up for it and purchased this. I wanted to become an animator, and animation is still important to me. This one is great because it kind of gives you a survey of Disney from the beginning, from some of the early days of some of the shorts that they were producing, all the way through, a big chapter on Snow White, of course, and then and lots of great pictures throughout this entire book. Just stunning to see the artwork that they made, and they talk about the process. And then, of course, it goes into the new regime with Michael Eisner, Jeffrey Katzenberg, Peter Schneider. And then there's a big section on Beauty and the Beast at the very back of this book. Really fabulous book. The artwork alone is worth it. This was one of my favorites, just looking at the different voice actors for the characters and how they lined up. I was obsessed with that. So this book means a lot to me, and I think you would actually get a lot out of this. So quickly before we leave, those are books I've read and would highly recommend you check out. But I've got my own little list here of books that I would like to read for the summer, and I thought I'd throw them in. I don't know if I can recommend them in the same way just because I haven't read them, but I'm looking forward to reading them. So this, The Disney Story. This is by H. Goldberg. This came in my Magic at Your Door, I forget, one of my Main Street Mail, I think, subscription boxes. As you can see, I am actually slightly through this book, but my problem with this one so far is it's a little dry and factual. It's basically a timeline that starts in the early days and runs through, you know, I forget when this was published, but sorry, New York City is alive for the summer. 2013-ish, so, you know, relatively recently. What's easy about it is that the sections are short and they're fairly easily digestible because it's a lot of bullet points. And I enjoy a good sort of outline structure because I think very linearly. And so this really helps me get like that big perspective of beginning to end timeline for Disney. So might be worth checking out. I checked this out for my school library and a while back, and it's like way overdue, but I'll get it back one of these days. And I haven't read it yet. This is called The Queens of Animation, the untold story of the women who transformed the world of Disney and made cinematic history by Nathalia, Holt. And if you didn't know, there were the 9 old men. Women were hired in the Disney studios to ink and paint the drawing. So they would take the drawing, they would put the clear acetate over top of it, they would redraw the lines and then paint them in. So a lot of pressure was on these women because they were transferring Marc Davis's and some of these top animators, Ollie, Johnston, their drawings into what was on the film. And the animators took a lot of issue with that to a certain extent because they left their drawings to be accurately transcribed by somebody else. And these women, you know, did not get the credit they deserve. So this is a fascinating read with social sort of topics thrown in there, but sort of an unsung era or unsung job in the Disney studios. So I am really, really looking forward to this. And then finally, if I get the time, I couldn't even hold this up in my opening thing because it's so bloody heavy. This is called The Illusion of Life Disney Animation. This is by Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston. I mean, it's just massive. Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston were two very public and highly celebrated of the 9 old men. They were very much responsible for a lot of the major characters. They're fabulous actors. This just talks about their whole process. It's a lot of lessons and lectures and things that they learned, thinking about the characters and things like that. And this is not a cheap book either, but if you don't want to read this giant thing, I would highly recommend Frank and Ollie. It's a documentary on the Disney Plus, which documents their story. They were the best of friends. They lived next door to each other. Their wives were good friends. They drove every day to the Disney studios and back again, talking, working out their animation, and something special happened between the two of them. So this is something I've had this in my collection for a while, but have not actually read, so I'm really looking forward to diving into this. So that's what I got for you, my summer reading list. I hope something on there inspired you. I'd be curious to know if you've read other books in the sort of the Disney history, Disney biography category that I didn't mention. I'd love to know about them. Drop them down below. And that way we can kind of curate a little bit of a list. We can get inspired, keep that Disney magic going all summer. And make sure you like, comment, subscribe. You know the drill. And until the next Disney afternoon,
hope to see you back real soon, sharing in Jake's Disney afternoon.